Morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Alex, for apt introduction as well. What EBRD thinks of EBRD, I think it's quite accurate. Good morning. My name is Oskar Andruszkiewicz. I'm a senior evaluator at EBRD Independent Evaluation Department. And I'm very pleased to be here today in Montenegro to present the findings from the recently published country-level evaluation of EBRD activities in Montenegro. I'll take about 10 minutes to provide an overview of the key findings, but before that, let me just start off with a little bit of introduction just to set the context. I represent the Independent Evaluation Department. There's about 20 of us in London office, and we produce between 4 and 8 largest, largest pieces of research annually, which assess various banks' interventions, from individual investments through reforms up to larger programs. All the reports are published externally and are available on EBRD website. And that notion of being independent is really, really crucial. It has got some practical manifestations. Eventually, what we put in our reports is entirely at our discretion, as long as we can back it up with solid evidence base. And so there is a benefit and responsibility of speaking truth to power, also in cases where findings may not be entirely comfortable for EBRD. That makes, in our view, reports objective and hopefully also more informative and insightful. Now, the reasons for this evaluation, there has been quite a few, but the primary one, EBRD is a public institution. It spends public money, so it's really important to look how it did in the past. So there's an element of accountability, and there's also an element of learning. So once we understand how did the bank do in the past, we can inform the future operations. But there's also a very practical element which relates to Montenegro. EBRD will formulate the new country strategy this year for Montenegro, and our intention in evaluation department was to come up with a robust piece of analysis that then the teams across EBRD will be able to use while formulating the new EBRD country strategy for Montenegro. Raymond provided very useful introduction, so I won't dwell too much on the strategic approach, but as you probably know, every country where EBRD invests has a country strategy. And for Montenegro, since 2016, there have been 2 country strategies, and they had 3 priorities, which, broadly speaking, remained constant. The first one, enhancing competitiveness of the private sector. Second one, supporting regional connectivity and integration, including cross-border transport and energy links. And the third one, deepening Montenegro's green transition, including investments and support of reforms related to clean energy, sustainable infrastructure. Now, very quickly, in terms of the scope of this evaluation, we looked at the period of 2017-2024, over which bank's cumulative investment was 490 million euros across 40+ projects. That's on the investment side. We also looked at individual so-called policy dialogue work streams, which are effectively activities that support individual reforms. There were 15 of those. Some of those you may be very well familiar with. Raymond alluded to those as well. EBRD support to draft new company law, EBRD's involvement in designing and rolling out renewable auctions, conceptual work that underpin credit guarantee fund, and so on and so forth. We ask ourselves 5 main evaluation questions, such as what kind of results did the bank manage to induce in Montenegro, how well aligned its strategies and operations were with the country needs, and also what government intended to do, and a few others. One important piece I have to mention before we move to actual findings is a particular focus on systemic impact. So we wanted to see whether EBRD managed to induce in Montenegro some wider sort of transformational type of impact which can occur at the sector or even occasionally at the macro level, going beyond the individual project. So, small disclaimer, I'll refer to that later on a few occasions. Or in terms of the sources of evidence, I will not dwell too much on it neither, but just to say our team visited Montenegro twice, and we conducted extensive interview program. I see some of the faces in the room today as well. So we spoke to 80 stakeholders across EBRD clients, EBRD staff itself, public authorities, there were a few key ministries, virtually all international financial institutions active in Montenegro, and also importantly civil society organizations. Now moving on to the substance and actual findings from the report, finding number 1, EBRD actually made significant investment in Montenegro. Over the space of 2017-2024, it was 490 million euros. When you look at the chart in the top right corner, so we plotted those volumes for each of the years, and with the exception of COVID, which was some sort of a force majeure and really one-off exceptional size of assistance from EBRD, otherwise between 2017-2022, the annual volumes were between 20 and 30 million euros. However, in 2023, and from then onwards, we've seen a major and sustained ramp up in EBRD's commitment. And in 2024, it invested 104 million euros, or committed to invest 104 million euros, which corresponds to 1.4% of GDP. You may wonder whether it's a lot or not. In absolute terms, there's a number of countries where EBRD invests multiple of it, but 1.4% of GDP is rather significant, a significant share of the output. Just to give you an example, the government invests 0.6% in judiciary system in Montenegro, or public investment in transport annually are just above 1.4%. So we're talking about a fairly significant amount of investment. We're also curious how those figures pan out on the per capita basis, just adjusting for the size of the country. And so over the period 2017-2024, EBRD committed to invest 772 euros per person. And then when we ranked Montenegro across all 38 countries where EBRD invests, guess what? Montenegro was on the top of it, which suggests that the bank's relative commitment in the country, intensity of that commitment has been significant, adjusting for the size. But it wasn't just about the volumes. What we also found was that there was a rapid trend in greening of the portfolio. The bank uses the metric to track how much green finance it's got in its overall investment volume, which is called Green Economy Transition Ratio. And for the period 2017-21, it was 29%. Then more recently, it jumped to 81%, and that has been the largest increase across all 6 Western Balkan countries, mostly on the account of several large projects in energy. Raymond also alluded to those, and that's really encouraging. What else did we find? Low share of private sector in EBRD's portfolio. For our period of analysis, that was 26%. And at the face value, it would be normally quite concerning. There would be, and there are some questions in EBRD, why just 26%, given the bank's mandate and focus on private sector. But when we dug into the details and checked what kind of projects did EBRD finance actually with the state clients, we found out that gross of those projects were into so-called enabling infrastructure. So those critical assets like roads, railways, energy, which are often prerequisite to unlock private sector investments in the mid and longer run. So those gaps, I'll mention 3 here. First one, there was no single case of state-owned enterprises privatization between 2017 and 2024. There was no single case of a public-private partnership structure deployed in the country, again over 2017-2024. Limited investment in sustainable municipal infrastructure and no investment in digital infrastructure. In the report, we go into details what underpinned those outcomes. Some of them were beyond the EBRD control. Privatization is a very good example. Now, in terms of operational efficiency, how well bank manages to deliver its investment and reforms, we have found quite a few delays in predominantly in public sector clients. And then you may wonder why those delays occurred. There was no single factor, but few of them were sort of recurring theme: frequent government changes, loss of technical staff, at times sluggish decision-making process at the state level or state-owned enterprises level. And in few cases, we also found projects where COVID-19 caused some serious disruption in the timetable of delivery. And those delays in public sector clients' projects resulted in low EBRD disbursement rate. For our time frame, it was 45%. And this is quite important because eventually the impact occurs when the money are channeled to the real economy. And that was also the lowest rate across 6 Western Balkan countries for the period we looked at. Now, is there a fix to that? Our view was that not really. There's not really a silver bullet solution, but two elements that we found that in our views helped to avoid even further delays was, first of all, technical assistance. So EBRD, apart from financial envelope, the actual money, very often, in fact, in 75% of projects with state clients, provides a technical assistance. Let me give you one example: project implementation units where EBRD or external donors finance experts, engineers, consultants who then support to deliver those complex infrastructure projects. And so those have been very, very helpful. The second element, EBRD is the only IFI with the presence of the local banking team in Podgorica. And very quickly, through the feedback from the clients, but also the markets, and our own work, we realized that actually the seasoned and committed local banking team often went beyond the actual role of conventional financer who just signs the loan agreement and then walks away. In the country, local team has been involved in supporting clients in overcoming actual challenges in delivery. And that has been, in our view, a competitive advantage of the EBRD as well. And that's exactly what we want to see from international financial institution, which should differ from the commercial lenders. So very encouraging finding.